Good morning. My name is Sparrow Kennedy. Welcome to the Occupied Live News program where we cover the activist perspective. Here are the stories for today. Last week, about 500 activists from across the United States converged onto Philadelphia for what can only be described as a rainbow gathering with a political theme. The national gathering ended with the reading of a collective vision statement that was created over the 4-day period. It's unclear if the majority of the movement actually supports the document. Since the breakup of the organization formerly known as Occupy Wall Street, activists used to the support structures of Comfort Station, Medical, and Kitchen are having to adjust to a more streamlined approach. Street medics are in need of supplies. If you are interested in supporting the efforts of the street medics, please drop off holistic medications in front of Trinity Church. And if you would like to make a monetary donation, you can contact them at wepay.com/donations/OWS-medics. Last weekend was action-packed. Occupy Times Square in Brooklyn boasted of 300 supporters and a bilingual General Assembly. Also, the Koch brothers threw a party in the Hamptons this weekend, and occupiers headed to the gate crashed the party and made headlines doing so. Thousands of Spaniards in Madrid turned out against the new cuts introduced by the government. At least 76 people have been injured as tensions flare between protesters and police who are using rubber bullets. Those injured include 33 police officers and 43 protesters. Now, for the next segment of our broadcast, we're going to have a very, very, very interesting guest. As many of you know, the Rio 20 conference is a United Nations mega conference on sustainable development. And this particular one had in attendance over 50,000 people from all over the world and 190 heads of state. And so today in the studio, via Skype, we're going to have Luisa Damiago, and she's an occupier from Occupy Sampa.
Yes.
Via Skype, we're going to have Luisa Damiago, and she's an occupier from Occupy Sampa.
Yes.
Via Skype, we're going to have Luisa Damiago. Luisa?
Yes.
Hi, Luisa. How are you?
I'm fine, and you?
Oh, it's great to have you here.
Hi, Luisa. It's great to be here. It's very good to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you here. I see we're getting a little bit of feedback.
Thanks for the invitation.
I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're here. It's great to have you. So tell me, can you give me a little bit about what's going on? I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're here. It's great to have you. So tell me what's going on.
Yes, I'm here. Okay.
Can you give me a little?
Is that better?
Can you hear me? I think we're going to have technical difficulties right now with the Skype. With the Skype feed. Luisa is with us from Brazil. With the Skype feed, Luisa is with us from. And right now our technicians are trying to repair the problem. So please bear with us. We will fix the problem momentarily. So please bear with us. Okay. Fix the problem momentarily. So please bear with us. Okay. So basically, what's been going on?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Luisa. Fantastic. So basically,
I will mute my mic when I'm not talking, so I think that can help.
Okay, that sounds like a plan. So go ahead, just tell me what's going on.
We camped, in São Paulo downtown on October 15, and we stayed camped there for almost 2 months, and with general assemblies, and stuff that probably you have over there too, and other occupiers have it also. General assemblies, open spaces to everyone can talk a little bit and have their voices heard. Back in New York and other occupies, it's important to highlight that here in Brazil we have a lot of occupies. We have São Paulo, we have Porto Alegre, we have Rio de Janeiro. Rio de Janeiro is the city in which happened People's Occupy. That was the parallel event to Rio Plus 20 and the People's Summit. These two were the official events from UN. And are you guys hearing me?
Okay, so
okay, nice.
This is really fascinating. So while the Rio 20 was going on, you guys were having the Rio 99, and that's an event that was running concurrently. Now, what kinds of things came out of the conference that you had?
We had Kennedy Center Link, we had a huge march, the People's March, and we did a protest over there where the occupiers were naked to call attention, and they painted their bodies saying they don't represent us. And this was really strong. One of the biggest portals, is called G1. They released our action in the People's March, and was really strong and really powerful to have an outside event, a parallel event, where our voice could be heard and where an open space, everyone could talk, everyone discuss everything. But during the São Paulo Occupy, we did a lot of things. We connected more other movements, movements that struggle for dignity and for digging home, and other movements critical mass. We had their support sometimes, and they showed up there. And difficulty with the police, of course, everyone has, every Occupy has, I believe. Difficulty with the police, of course, everyone has. Every Occupy has, I believe. I think this is it. I think this is it. And it's very cool because we try to. We have, for example, a live stream channel. It's Anonymous BR, it's Anonymous Brazil, and we always try to live stream things we do. And in the beginning of this year, when we were removed, we camped in 3 different parks here in São Paulo. And after being removed from all of them, we started to think in other kinds of actions, and to strengthen the relation with other occupieds around the world and around Brazil, because it's something it's hard to get. It's funny because we are all in the same struggle. We are all connected with all together, but sometimes we don't meet each other.
Well, I think it's absolutely fantastic that you guys, essentially came together with various ideas and various interests, and they all intersected in such a creative and wonderful manner. And, you guys, it sounds like you guys were a team, because despite the ejections, you were moving from camp to camp to camp to camp. Can you tell me a little bit about the removal process. In America, when we have our encampments disbanded, they tend to get a little bit on the violent side. So can you give us your perspective on the behavior of the police and the authority in Brazil when you guys were removed from the encampments?
The police is always violent. The São Paulo police is one of the most violent in the world. We have like several types of police. So first of all, what? We have like several types of police. Sorry?
I wasn't interrupting you.
Not a problem.
But yeah, wow. That's in the face of such, brutality. It's great that you're so strong. We're very, 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 very much in solidarity with you here. And I want to know a little bit more about the indigenous struggle against the dam happening.
That's a strong thing. It's a strong issue. Belo Monte Dam, they are trying to build Belo Monte Dam in the state of Pará. That's northwest Brazil. And they are removing a lot of people, like more than 20,000 people, and we have indigenous tribes that are going to be homeless, and they are being violently removed. And also in parallel to Rio Plus 20, some friends helped to organize a meeting called Xingu Plus 23, that is in a response to revive the first Amazon People's meeting that was 23 years ago. And they, in the time situation, they could stop the construction. So 11 leaderships of the Forever Live Xingu movement are being politically persecuted, and it's clear that it exists an alliance, a strong and dangerous alliance between the Pará state, between the police, between the federal government, and between the construction consortium. So they are persecuting like a priest, a nun, a local fisherman, indigenous missionaries that are fighting for the indigenous cause, and other leaderships. So it's very dangerous and important to pay attention here and to try to stop. A great thing is to show solidarity. Like we were thinking about doing something in other embassies around the world, like in the US, like in the European Union, like in Latin America, because here in Latin America we are facing, all the countries are facing difficult times. We are having government acts, that are in communities acts, so it's happening in all Latin America. The right parties are taking control, and this is scaring us. The right seems to be like a linked action. It's something that's happening in all Latin America.
Now, how can your American counterparts and, global counterparts, how can we support you in solidarity besides watching your live stream channel, which happens to be Anonymous Brazil?
You could help sharing the information. We've been trying to always release things in Portuguese and English, so it's more everyone can understand, and spread the word, share the message, and show solidarity, like doing actions on embassies and sending us things and sending us pictures. Spread the word, share the message, and show solidarity,
well, thank you so much for joining us in the studio today. We appreciate it, all the way from Brazil. So, moving on. We're going to have a conversation with Ellen Barfield. She is a veteran for peace, your team member.
Yes.
A former U.S. Army sergeant.
Right.
You co-founded the Baltimore chapter of Veterans for Peace. And you participate in the DC Freedom Plaza.
Occupation.
Yes. Wow, you have quite a resume. Okay, do we agree she's an activist, right? Exactly.
Great activist.
All right, and we have also Ellen Davidson. And you are active with the Veterans for Peace, and you are on the Veterans Peace Team, the New York Independent newspaper, the War Resisters League. You also have quite an incredible resume. So if we can get consensus, I would say that we have two activists on the floor.
I think we have more than that.
I think we have more than that, yes.
And Tarak Kauf, you're a veteran. And you are also with the Veterans for Peace, and you moderate the Veterans for Peace team, and you lead a number of direct actions, I hear.
We have done.
Right. And Art.
Yes.
Art Nassaman, we have a former judge in the house. He is a former Superior Court judge from New Hampshire, and you're also a veteran.
Yes, I am.
Nice. And you served in Baghdad as the director of the Office of Accountability and Transparency?
Yes, I did in 2007.
Wow. So I don't know if people haven't realized at this point, we're going to have a conversation about the Veterans for Peace. Is that right? So guys, tell me a little bit about why this group started, your mission, and what you guys do on just an everyday, daily basis to ensure that you are able to carry out the mission that you have established for yourselves.
Well, Veterans for Peace is an organization that started in 1985, and we're all members of it. The Veterans Peace Team is quite new, 6 months now? The motivation came out of seeing the police abuse on the occupies, which we were just talking about with Louisa. It's worldwide, of course. And we had an informal Veterans Action Group, and many of us are part of the Peace Team now, but we have a lot of new folks too, and we're hoping for more, to work with Occupy and whoever, people standing up for their rights, demanding redress of grievances. That comes right out of the U.S. Constitution. We have a right to peacefully assemble to demand a redress of grievances. We are older, we are veterans. We hope that ourselves can be a buffer. Not protection, we don't imagine we can protect from whatever the violent state wants to do, but just to be a buffer, maybe to cause a little slowing down, a little thinking about it a little harder. Hoping to be able to moderate some very tense situations and stand in solidarity with the occupies and whoever are resisting state and corporate dominance.
Sparrow, can I add on to that a little bit? Just
yeah, please do.
What Ellen just said. There's another aspect to the Veterans Peace Team. The Veterans Peace Team is essentially a nonviolent direct action team. And what are...
So you guys are the exact opposite of Black Bloc.
No.
Well, I don't know. I don't want to talk about Black Bloc. I'm not going to speak about Black Bloc, but I'm going to speak about what we are. We're a nonviolent group of veterans and allies, and our mission is to weaken the pillars that support the state, that support the violence of the state. And so this is a direct mission, and the way that we do that, the way we intend to do that, is by challenging the violence of the state when it occurs and when we see it and when we can in person, confronting it, documenting it, and being there to take a nonviolent line, opposing the violence that we see all the time from the police state, from the police, whether it's police, National Guard, whatever it is, when there is an attempt to intimidate by the threat of violence or the actual use of violence. And if they want to use violence, we want to be on the front line so that the world can see the police state using violence on their own military veterans. Let them see that.
So your job, essentially, from what I understand, your mission is to give information. So you supply activists and protesters and people who happen to be participating in these kinds of events with information about how to peacefully interact?
Not exactly. No.
Okay.
We want to be standing peacefully in the face of state violence.
So you're the barrier.
Well, we can't. I mean, we are, as unarmed, nonviolent protesters, we are not capable of protecting anybody against the full force of the state with their guns and their batons and their. So we're not protecting, but we think of it as more. As we stand in the line, we like to weaken the resolve of the police. Because when the police see a line of nonviolent veterans, they start to think about those orders that they just got to kick people's butts, to pull out those batons and start beating heads. And so another way we want to weaken, besides just exposing the violence and minimizing public support for those institutions that perpetrate that violence, we also are hoping that the police themselves, I mean, the police are also part of the 99%. Their pensions are under attack. They work long, hard hours at a dangerous job, and there are some of them, as we know, who are just basically brutal sadists who beat on people. But there are a lot of them who are ordinary people who are just trying to hold down a job, who actually support the aims of Occupy, and they've told us this when they've arrested us. They've actually said, we really support what you're doing. So we want to make it that much harder. We want to wake up their consciences too, so that when push comes to shove in this country and they're looking around to see what side they're on and whose orders they're going to follow, there's going to be that much stronger voice in their head saying, wait, these are military veterans who served our country. These are my brothers and sisters. They're fighting for the same things that I want. And so by representing a dignified, nonviolent force that's standing in the face of violence, but without anger, without hostility, with true nonviolence, we're hoping that we can undermine that pillar that's holding up the state.
So you guys serve as a visual reminder. That's a very powerful statement. Can you tell me about any actions or events that happened in the past where these strategies were very effective?
Well, Art, do you want to talk about May Day?
Sure. On May Day, we were in the May Day march with Occupy Wall Street, and we marched down Broadway, and I think that there were up to 30 or 40,000 people involved that day in the demonstration. And I think it was about 10 o'clock at night at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, and I think it's in, I'm from New Hampshire, so I'm unfamiliar with the city, but I think it's in Lower Manhattan, is that correct? Occupy Wall Street was having a meeting there's an amphitheater there. It's a beautiful memorial to the 55,000 U.S. soldiers were killed in Vietnam so that we could have freedom of speech, freedom to petition, and freedom to assemble. At least that's what we were told as young soldiers in those days. And to say the least, it's ironic for Occupy Wall Street to come to Veterans for Peace that day and ask us to stand as a buffer between them and the police, who they knew were going to come in and sweep them out of the memorial at about 10 o'clock at night, that night. And then a group called Clergy for Peace with a man who I remember, Bishop George Packard from Trinity Church, and I can't remember, there was another priest, an African-American priest, but I don't hear well, so it's hard for me in a group like this. But anyway, at the point
Reverend Michael Ellick was there.
Yes.
Michael Ellick.
Yeah.
And we were there, and we linked arms, and we stood between the assembling police and the members of Occupy Wall Street as they were having their meeting, and then the police basically swept us up and arrested us and put us on a van, and we went to be booked and et cetera. But I think Ellen was talking about how some of the police agree with us. They agree with the 99%, and they agree with the 99% people that are speaking out, like you, like Occupy Wall Street, like the Occupy movement throughout the country. And I remember one of the police officers on the bus saying, I'm going to be retiring in about 6 months, and I'm going to be over there at Zuccotti Park with you guys. And I know it can be true because I was in the 82nd Airborne back in 1970, or 71, I think it was, that this event happened. But it was one of the last huge anti-Vietnam demonstrations in Washington, D.C. And we were called up to go there and protect the city from the demonstrators. I mean, that's what we were told, that bridges were going to be blown up.
So you guys, that was the job of the soldiers.
That was the job of soldiers. So I'm there. I know nothing. I'm a young man who believes I'm come from a rural area in New Hampshire. I feel like I'm really helping my country by being in the military, and I'm going to go to D.C. and protect our country from these vicious demonstrators. And you get there, and this is why I believe what Ellen says is true. We can help educate, because I learned that they're giving me bullshit in the military. And the people that are demonstrating really care about what's happening to my fellow soldiers half a world away. And that memorial where we were arrested is for those soldiers and for the others who were hurt and continue to be hurt today from those many years ago. So that's my perspective on that event.
It's a very bold perspective.
Well, it's a realistic perspective, because when we were there were a few thousand people that had gathered, as Art says, and they were having a general assembly. And it was totally peaceful. It was what you would want to see in a country. It was democratic. It was peaceful. It was beautiful. It was wonderful. There was no rationale whatsoever for the police to drive them out. What a perfect place to have a democratic, beautiful, peaceful gathering like that, to talk about real issues. This is something that should be encouraged. But the police were there not to encourage democracy, but to protect Standard & Poor's and whatever other financial institutions that are part of the 1%. And they were driving us out of there. That memorial is supposed to be open 24/7, not supposed to be closed at 10 o'clock. So they arbitrarily decided to close it and drive us out. And they do so through fear and the threat of violence. So they did drive the people out. And we stood there. And we were standing there. We weren't doing anything. We're obviously not a violent threat. But still, we were arrested. Why? What's the rationale for this? What right do they have to do this? They're supposed to be servants of the people, supposed to be. But we know it doesn't work like that. We know who that they're serving. But yet, at the same time, as Art and Ellen were saying, many of them are decent people, but they're still following orders. And at a certain point, we know that many of them won't follow those orders, you know. And that's one of the reasons we stand there. The other reason is to expose what the violence of the state represents. It really is. And that it is wrong. It's completely wrong. It's completely backwards to what should be. And this is Bloomberg's private army, which yesterday showed up in New Jersey.
They showed up in New Jersey?
Yesterday they showed up in Perth Amboy.
New Jersey?
Yeah, exactly. Why?
The Guitar Army was marching from Philadelphia, from the National Gathering in Philadelphia to Wall Street, and so Bloomberg sent his little shock troops out.
His conquistadors? They can cross state lines now?
Yeah,
apparently.
So this is what he brags about. You know, this is my private army.
Yeah.
This man who's one of the wealthiest men in America and one of the most powerful with his private army. What an ego trip.
And that's how the police are being used. And that's part of what the peace team is about, is to set up that cognitive dissonance. Whoever, as Tarek said, whoever are being used as the shock troops, it can be the National Guard, it can be regular Army like Art talked about, whoever the powers that be send out to protect their stuff and try to keep things normal, try to keep things the way they are, which is most people starving and a few people grotesquely wealthy. whoever those shock troops are the 99%. They are economically at as much risk of losing their houses and their retirement income as everybody else is. And they're being told, as Art said, a lot of lies, a lot of bullshit, and being given horrendous illegal orders. And if the Veterans Peace Team simply being there, totally nonviolently, simply pointing out and hoping to buffer the violence as best we can, not in any defensive way, we can't do that, but just to set up questions in the minds of the people who are being used, who are being thrown out there to defend an indefensible system. They question, they realize how at risk their jobs and their financial security are, and they are not going to be as likely to crack a head or to drag someone away. And that is one of the pillars. This state, this whole world is in a lot of trouble, and things are going to have to change. And unfortunately, those shock troops are going to be right in the middle of it. And if they're questioning it, if they're not so likely to carry out their orders, then the pillars will fall sooner and things will change.
That's another reason, I just want to throw this in, that's another reason why I am very opposed to when when the police are there, calling them pigs, attacking them personally. You don't know who they are. Some of these people have families. Some of these people are not, and it's not easy to get jobs these days. Some of these people didn't expect to be doing this that are on the force. So I never attack them personally. I'm opposed to the whole idea of the police state. I'm not opposed to the individual human beings who may at some point be our brothers in solidarity. You know, and I don't want to call them pigs, and I don't want to throw things at them, and I don't want to treat them that way. I want to treat them the way that I want to be treated. But I will stand there with resolve, and we will all stand there with resolve, as is our right to do. And I remember that this little power-hungry captain, I can't remember his name, the one of the white shirts coming up with his bullhorn, 2 feet away from me with the bullhorn, screaming in the bullhorn, "All right, you have a direct order from the police department to move." He does not have a right to give me that direct order. As a human being, I have a right to stand there, especially at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, where these people who were listed on there mistakenly thought they were fighting to preserve that very right. And this little this dictatorial person is coming up there, and just because he's a captain in a police department, he has the right to chase us out of there? No, I don't agree with that. But I'm not facing him with hatred, but we are facing him with resolve. No, it is our right to be here.
That's powerful. You're facing them with resolve. Now, you wanted to...
Well, I think what I wanted to say was that we see increasingly in this country the characteristics of a police state. In terms of the kind of spying that goes on, in terms of the arbitrary arrests, the way people, the recent passage of the NDAA, which authorizes indefinite detention of people without charges, without recourse to legal assistance. So we're increasingly, some people say we're there, some people say we're headed that way, but police state is definitely, in the air. And at some point, push is going to come to shove in this country. And so when it gets to that point, I want people on the police force to be thinking about whose side they're on and where their interests really lie. And that's what we're trying to do with this. Another thing we're trying to do with the Veterans Peace Team, as I said, standing there without anger, without, I would say even with love, as Gandhi would have preached.
Agape love. Unconditional love.
Yeah, they're human beings. They're fellow creatures on this planet, and so we're not there to be hostile. We are there to hold our ground. We are there to make a statement. We are very firm about what we believe. We're not just rolling over, but we're not there to be hostile. We're there to show what solidarity is.
You're there. You resolve to be there, to be in solidarity with your purpose. Now, for me, you guys are veterans. You know what the Constitution says. You guys should know better than anybody else. Now, what kinds of constitutional rights and ideas are being trampled that you see? Like, elaborate on that. Tell me more about that.
I just want to say, just for truth, I am not a veteran. There are non-veteran members of Veterans for Peace, and I'm a.
So you're an ally. Okay. Well, this question is directed at the veterans.
I'm posting as a veteran. I know the Constitution, I think, as well as any veteran. But I don't want anybody to think I'm posing
From a
as one.
veteran's perspective, you guys were on the front lines. You fought to defend the Constitution that is now being, from your perspective, twisted to suit an agenda that is not in favor of the people. Like,
well, I can say for me, you know, we have, and I think I mentioned it before, we have in our Constitution acknowledged, actually in the amendments to our Constitution, the first 10 amendments, but the Bill of Rights, the right to assemble, the right to free speech and press, and those rights are being severely restricted by a government controlled by transnational corporations, by money, private money in huge corporations that is this government is narrowing and narrowing and narrowing our rights to express ourselves. And the reason they're narrowing those rights is because most people in the country are so busy trying to live through the next day that they can't be involved as we are, for whatever reason, whether it's that particular time in their life, the way that they have to live. They aren't able to be out on the streets with us or working with us directly to send the message we think needs to be sent. So the government only has a small number of us to control, and if they can narrow our voice, then they can prevent us from educating the bigger part of our culture, our people, about what our government is doing to us. And, you know, for me, what we have, one of the huge problems in our country today is a lack of integrity in the law. For instance, we have a president who I supported and who I went to his inauguration, and I had great hopes for him. But within 2 weeks, when he said, we have to move on, and decided not to investigate the torture, he did nothing about Guantanamo. He did not speak to the American people. I mean, his excuse is Congress didn't go along. Well, he could have spoken to us. He could have gone on national television and said, look, Congress is doing this. I know it's wrong. You know it's wrong. I vowed that we would close down that gulag, but he hasn't done that. And instead, he's protected potential war criminals. I can't say they haven't been convicted yet, but Bush and his minions committed an act of deceit on the American people that caused us to enter into a war and an occupation in Iraq that killed hundreds of thousands of innocent people and spent trillions of our own dollars. And we should be ashamed of ourselves for not investigating and deciding whether Bush and the other people that lied to us should be tried in a court for war crimes. There's a definition in the law of fraud and deceit. And what the definition is, it's fraud or deceit when you intentionally tell someone a lie with the intent that they rely on your untruth to their detriment. And that's exactly what the Bush administration did to us, and it's exactly what Obama's administration is doing now. And then to add insult to injury, he signed the NDAA. I have parsed that thing out. I am a judge. I have years and years and years of experience. And that was the final straw for me, the NDAA. That means any of us can be arrested tomorrow, held by the military, and we cannot get an access to the court. We
No
have
habeas
no
corpus.
access to the court.
Right.
And if you have no access to the court, you basically disappear. There's nothing you can do.
So can the people file a class action suit against the government?
Chris Hedges has brought suit, and in fact, I believe the federal court did issue an injunction to prevent that part of the NDA from being executed. Of course, Obama and Holder are fighting that, and they should be ashamed of themselves. They should be ashamed of themselves for many, many, many things, but these are among those things. And that's, on top of that, they expect us to care about these nickel and dime laws down at the Vietnam Memorial when the white-shirted police officer comes up and tells us we're under arrest for standing in a public place that's open 24 hours a day. Why should anyone obey the law when our own president laughs in its face?
Now, isn't that our constitutional right? Don't we have the right to assemble?
Of course we do.
Yes, we do.
And so by them telling us to do that, every time they tell us to do that, they're in effect violating our constitutional rights.
Exactly.
Wow. So, wow, this is deep, you guys. This is very deep.
One of the things they do, I mean, I don't want to monopolize this, but it's the free speech zones. You know the free speech zones that they set up where you go and they'll say, all right, you can have your free speech, and you're 8 blocks away from whatever it is that you're protesting, enclosed in what I call a cyclone fence, but it's like any fence that they can put you in and control you.
A pen.
Yes.
Right.
And that is unconstitutional. And that, and the government does this, and it does it on behalf of the corporations that are actually running the country. It's our government representatives don't represent us. They represent what we would call the 1%, the masters of war, the military-industrial complex, the prison-industrial complex. That's who they represent. And when Hillary Clinton talks about U.S. interests, she's not talking about our interests as American citizens, U.S. citizens. She's talking about corporate interests. And they will do whatever it takes, wherever they have to go, to make sure that these corporations make money. And the corporations take the money, and then they don't want to pay taxes, and they don't pay the taxes because they have the power to control our House and Senate and the President of the United States, and now the Supreme Court, which through Citizens United has solidified their ability to control this country. That is the corporation's ability to control this country.
Wow.
That's my take on a problem with our government's interpretation of the Constitution.
Well, we've got a massive problem here. We don't only have to make adjustments, but this system is absolutely, the system and the people who profit from the system, it is absolutely insane. But it's worse than insane. It's violently insane. It's destructively insane. And if it doesn't change radically soon, we're not going to have a planet to walk around on. We're not going to have, you know, the very Earth, the very living planet that we're on is being destroyed. Not to mention also all our relatives, the elephants, the whales, the dolphins. The other day we heard about the Navy is consciously planning their massive sonar operations, which they admit will destroy, will kill certain thousands of whales and deafen many thousands of dolphins.
This is military testing, and it's military testing that's designed, and they know it. It's designed to essentially wipe out an entire species of whale. And there's been a very little
this is also part of it. This is all going on at the same time. So as human beings, as people who care about this earth, we have to change this, and we have to change it as quickly as we can, and we have to be willing, all of us, to make this sacrifice. Whatever that sacrifice is, we have to be willing to do that. Or we won't have future generations.
Okay.
We have Crystal.
Okay, and so Crystal, you've been really silent. You've been here.
Very unusual.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Patiently, as we're having this very intense dialogue about, just the complete eradication of our constitutional rights as citizen in the interest of big business and financial concerns. And so you also occupy Freedom Plaza.
I did.
You're a writer.
I was one of the organizers, and I lived in a tent there for about 4 months.
You lived in a tent?
Yeah.
We have another consensus. We have another real occupier.
Oh yeah.
So exciting. Okay, and now tell you're a part of this program.
I am a part of the Vets Peace team, which as you've been as we've been talking about is pretty deadly serious. The mission there. I have a daughter named Ariel Zevon, who, along with Bill Moyer of Backbone Campaign, conceived this idea. He does. What's he call it? Artful activism, where he does a lot of big letters and signs and props and so on.
We're going to translate that for the audience. It's fabulous.
Yes, it is.
It is.
Together they were working on a housing action and decided to write a song to a doo-wop tune, and my daughter performed it. And out of that, she has continued, and I work with her, taking these very serious topics, but trying to find different ways and means of making people feel included, to reach people who might not be able to, who it's too heavy, some of the stuff.
Right.
So we're taking heavy topics and heavy lyrics and translating them into doo-wop music.
That's so you guys are taking serious topics, deadly serious topics from what we heard from Brazil and from the conversations that we had here, and you're taking them and you're condensing them and you're putting them in a format that's understandable and pleasant almost.
Yeah. We've done
now.
Quite
What's
a few
the name
things.
of this project?
It's called Do Occupy.
Do-Occupy
and www.do-occupy.org or .com.
Say do dash again.
It's D-O-O.
It's D-O-O dash occupy.org
or .com.
Wow. I think we've got some video of this project.
Yeah, I think the video you're going to show is from Chicago, from the NATO, where it was the first time she had done some produced videos, but she just took her little amp, and I had a little tiny camcorder with a broken shoulder. I filmed, and she did just walk down as in the middle of a march, burst into song, and even a couple of the police were dancing along with her.
Oh my God! Well, this sounds like exactly what we need to be doing. Do you hear this, activists?
Yeah.
Let's sing and dance, and everybody will do it with us.
Yeah. Yes. The idea is that anybody can do this. Write a song, go stand in front of a Bank of America, and just belt it out. It's amazing what happens. We've even had people give us money.
And you can make money. Great. Okay, let's see this video.
Standing strong out here in our streets now, standing strong and claiming our time. Standing strong out here in our streets now, because they done us bad with their crime. Won't back down till we get it, but we reckon we ought to get it. Been marching and fighting, we still got so terribly far to go. Only crime that's being committed, crime of making us hungry and poor, kicking us out of our homes every minute when they ought to be helping us more. Hold the cops hiding in riot gear, like a chain gang they don't even know. Being used like puppets for greed. Hear a scream, you're one of us, don't you know? Hold it right there while we hit it. Well, we reckon we ought to get it. Been marching and fighting, but we still got so terribly far to go. Gonna see the land of the free. Gonna shed the weapons and run. Gonna lay down somewhere in the city.
Yes! That was fantastic. And that's your daughter?
That's my daughter.
Oh, you sure? That was my daughter. I would be so proud.
I am so proud.
That's wonderful. And I think it's great. You know, she's got the support of the community behind her. And, you know, we've been running her videos. You see them all over the web. It's absolutely fantastic what she's doing. That kind of creativity that came out of something that is so intense and so volatile, and to take that and make something beautiful. And even and that translates to what you're doing. You're taking that frustration, you're taking this negativity, and you're saying, you know what? We resolve to peacefully make a difference. We resolve to peacefully make a change, and that's extremely powerful. And now tell me like a little bit more, real quickly, how can people find out more about your struggle? How can they stand in solidarity with you? And how can they get more information about the past events that you guys have done?
Well, they can go to the Veterans for Peace website, veteransforpeace.org. We have not yet created our own. Veterans Peace Team is a national project of Veterans for Peace.
Okay, so there's Veterans for Peace, and then there's the Veterans for Peace Team.
No, Veterans Peace Team.
Veterans Peace Team. Right. That's in solidarity with Veterans for Peace.
Well, more than solidarity. We are obviously in solidarity. It's a national project of Veterans. So if you go to the Veterans for Peace website, veteransforpeace.org, all you got to remember is just punch in Veterans for Peace and it'll come up. You'll get lots of information about what Veterans for Peace is doing, has been doing, our attempts to end all wars. And let's face it, we're in a state of constant war here. Right. Internally, in this country, and externally.
All right, so you have it. You've got it. If you go to veteransforpeace.org and you look up Peace Team, you will have all of the information that you need to be able to find these good people and support their cause. Thank you guys so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
good work.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
So we're about at that point where we wrap up our show. I'm going to let you know about a few things that are happening in the community this weekend and next weekend, some today, some in a couple of days. So there's going to be a fundraiser for Oscar Riviera, and that's going to be Saturday, July 14th at 6 p.m., and it's going to be at 310 West 43rd Street. That's in New York, New York. So please, please, please save the date for that. If you would like more information and you would like to contribute or volunteer for the event, you can call Espe Martel. His number is 212-927-9065. And you can also send him an email at espmartel@yahoo.com. And the Ramarley Graham Vigil is going to be happening today. It's going to be happening today. It's the last vigil for Ramarley Graham. And that's going to be happening today at 749 East 229th Street. The vigil is going to start at 7 p.m. So please come. We're going to see you there. Next, we're going to have 2,000 delegates from all across the country, all across the world. They're going to be coming to the Capitol in July for the International AIDS Conference. We hope that you come and join us. There's going to be a bus that departs from 208 West 13th Street. And for those of you who don't know, that happens to be Manhattan's LBGT Center. This is a one-day trip, and you're gonna return the same day that you go. This isn't an overnight trip, so don't pack a bag. The bus is gonna leave at 10:30, and there's gonna be lunch provided. I'm not sure if there's going to be vegan options or not, but if you register at http://signup.actuny.com, you can find out more information about that. Also, the Malcolm X grassroots movement has released their report on the extrajudicial killing of 110 Black people since January 1st, 2012. Every 40 hours in America, a Black person is killed. And this is a very serious issue. So please check that out. And we're inviting you to the Third Arts Cluster. That's going to be Sunday, July 15th at 7 p.m. at 388 Atlantic Avenue. And if you are in NYC, come to Summer Disobedience School. That is Saturday, July 14th, 3 p.m. So check us out on Facebook, Occupy Public Access NYC, and on the web at occupystudio.org. Thank you for watching. We're going to see you next week.
We are the 99%.